Once upon a time, in a small town nestled among the hills, there lived a scrappy little dog named Rusty. Rusty was a mutt, with shaggy fur that was a mix of brown and white, and a tail that never stopped wagging. Rusty lived with his owner, a kind woman named Mrs. Jenkins. She had rescued Rusty from the local shelter when he was just a puppy, and they had been inseparable ever since. Rusty loved nothing more than to follow Mrs. Jenkins around, his tiny paws pattering after her wherever she went. One day, Mrs. Jenkins fell ill and had to be hospitalized. Rusty was beside himself with worry. He didn't understand why his beloved owner had disappeared, and he missed her terribly. For days, he lay curled up on her bed, waiting for her to come home. But as the days turned into weeks, Rusty's worry turned to despair. He didn't know how to live without Mrs. Jenkins, and he didn't want to. He stopped eating and drinking, and he lost his playful energy. He just lay there, waiting for his owner to return. Finally, one day, Mrs. Jenkins did come home. Rusty heard her footsteps and barked with joy, his tail wagging frantically. When she opened the door, Rusty leapt into her arms, licking her face and whimpering with happiness. From that day on, Rusty was a different dog. He ate and drank with relish, and his playful energy returned. But he never forgot the pain of those weeks when Mrs. Jenkins was gone. He became even more devoted to her, following her around even more closely than before. And Mrs. Jenkins was grateful for Rusty's devotion. She knew that Rusty was more than just a pet to her, he was a true friend and companion. They went on long walks together, exploring the hills and fields around their town. And Rusty was always by Mrs. Jenkins' side, wagging his tail and gazing up at her with adoration.